Dear friends, I am pleased to welcome you to my narration dedicated to figures of the revolutionary period in Russia: Lenin, Stalin, Zinoviev, and Trotsky. These names are forever linked in history with our country's great changes and fierce struggle for power. However, among the many well-known revolutionaries, there is one individual whose name is not widely known, despite his significant contribution to the revolutionary movement. Today's episode will be devoted to an extraordinary and largely contradictory person, Alas Safarovich Yenukidze. His biography is filled with events that may shock and perplex. Together, we will try to understand what he was truly like. This man whose life and activities encompass such contradictions and unexpected facts. Before we begin our brief exploration, I would like to ask you for a favor. Please don't forget the importance of your participation and attention, as they help my work reach a larger audience. If you enjoy the material after watching, don't hesitate to leave a like, as it is very important for my channel. Now, settle in comfortably so you can more easily follow this story, because we are about to delve into the depths of Alas Safarovich Yenukidze's life. He was born in the second half of the 19th century, in the small town of Kutaisi, Georgia, then part of the Russian Empire. At an early age, after graduating from a local technical school in Tiflis, Yenukidze began to introduce his name into illegal revolutionary circles. His first active steps in revolutionary activity date back to the year 21 of the century, when he decided to dedicate his life to fighting and changing the established Tsarist regime. Soon, he found himself at the center of attention of the special authorities of the Russian Empire, as his activities were beginning to cause concern among the authorities. Gradually, he proved himself to be a persistent and daring person. By the age of 21, he was already escaping from detention multiple times, demonstrating his unwavering resolve and capacity for bold actions. After the October Revolution, he quickly rose through the ranks to the higher echelons of Soviet power. However, his true biography is not only about his participation in the revolution or his rise within party and state structures. A special place is occupied by that half of his life, which for a long time was kept silent or avoided mention. The fact is that it was precisely in the Kremlin, within the highest leadership circles, that Yenukidze displayed traits that could cause modern individuals to feel perplexed or disgusted. He, possessing power and influence, did not shy away from using his authority for personal gain, as often through unpleasant methods. For example, together with Mikhail Kalinin, one of his close associates, he was involved not only in political activities, but also in leisure, attracting women and actresses into his circle. Part 2 of 5. For them, these meetings often ceased to be simple introductions or friendly gatherings. They turned into much more complex and sometimes contradictory situations. This was also noticed by one of those who knew him personally, Maria Swanidze, who left detailed records of Yenukidze's inner life in her diary. Her entries pay particular attention to the fact that, despite having access to a variety of luxuries and amenities unavailable to ordinary citizens, he used his position to pursue personal ambitions and dirty goals. Among other things, this diary attests that he resorted to purchasing women and girls, revealing hidden, often repulsive tendencies. We will certainly tell more about this later, as his personal life is a dark, separate chapter of his biography, raising many questions and debates. Overall, this figure exemplifies how personal vices and weaknesses can coexist with revolutionary activity, and how power and influence provide the means to fully realize them. The story of Alas Safarovich Yenukidze is not just a tale of a person connected to the revolution, but a complex intertwining of positive change and dark facets of human nature, making his character truly contradictory and multifaceted. Sometime later, I would like to pause and tell in more detail about the character and behavior of Avuel Inuki, who, according to general information, was a person with a very particular way of thinking and acting. He did not hide his tendency to spend time in the company of other men's wives, and often It was precisely the attention of women or girls that prompted him to take the initiative. As soon as a woman caught his eye, he immediately invited her to visit his office to continue their acquaintance in a more private setting. This behavior indicated his ability to quickly find a way to connect with a woman, often causing envy in her husband or partner, as many knew about what was happening and could do nothing about it. Avwell seemed unreachable in his actions, as if he maintained a special, secluded demeanor from others. And despite the obviousness of the situation, many watched this with a mixture of surprise and helplessness. Thanks to the memories of witnesses and participants in those events, we can now reconstruct an interesting and vivid scene that reveals the character of this person. One day, Yenukidze showed particular interest in a ballerina and invited her to his place for more personal communication. When the girl entered his office, she immediately heard his unequivocal command to remove all her clothing, free from unnecessary modesty. The entire scene unfolded as if under hypnosis, and her obedience was without hesitation. After that, Yenukidze, apparently under the influence of power and permissiveness, ordered tea and brandy to be brought. He then instructed the ballerina to dance for him, but she was required to do so completely nude, showing her grace and skill in an unusual form. All of this was observed by his secretary, who at that moment was a witness. She brought drinks, while on Yenukidze's suit and clothing, there was a noticeable lack of refinement and propriety. Over the course of several hours, the ballerina left his office, and Yenukidze himself, in a state of joyful elation, ordered his assistants not only to pay for all her desires and current needs, but also to purchase her a fur coat that would emphasize her status. Of course, he did not do this personally. His team handled it, highlighting his attitude towards the embezzlement of state funds. Yenukidze was also unscrupulous in another way. He could easily pass his bored mistresses to his friends or colleagues, reflecting both his extravagance and total lack of morality. Aware of the risks and dangers associated with his behavior, he skillfully tried to flatter his lovers, generously giving them expensive gifts, so that, should their relationship be exposed, he could avoid unpleasant consequences for his reputation. One example of his blatant amorality concerns his relationships with women, including high-ranking ones. Another curious case involves a woman named Antonina Piroshkova, who was the wife of the well-known writer Isaac Babel. When she met Yenukidze, he invited her to his place with a promise to help her get a job at the Metro Project, one of the country's most important infrastructural enterprises. She was very eager to get there and shared her hopes about her new employment with her husband. Babel, however, was firmly opposed to it, emphasizing that there was a rumor in Moscow that Yenukidze was interested in young ballerinas from the Bolshoi Theater, and his recommendation could become a reason for unwanted talk, gossip, and rumors. Nevertheless, Piroshkova insisted, explaining her decision by saying that rumors were just rumors, and her attitude towards Avwell remained pure and untainted by his dubious reputation. She believed that their friendship was based on sincere feelings and remained loyal to him even after he was removed from all his positions, which testified to her steadfast fidelity and her ability to separate personal relationships from the political situation. She once wrote him a letter with a sincere effort to support him morally, overcoming inner turmoil and finding personal strength in her words. However, as we proceed further into our story, we will turn to the most dark and disgusting chapter of this party official's biography. To avoid limiting ourselves to just general statements, I will cite a quote from Maria Svanidze's diary, which not only recounts obvious facts, but also demonstrates the absolute convincingness of her words. In her entries, she proves that this man clearly lacked a full masculine nature, and with each passing year, his proclivities became increasingly improbable and repulsive. Initially, he seemed to behave within the bounds of decency, but then his interests began to confidently shift towards increasingly younger girls, ultimately reaching girls aged 9 to 11, which could no longer be explained by coincidence or any other reason except depravity. Maria also confirms the fact that this man, Yenukidze, was literally introducing girls into the institutions he controlled, girls who should have been directed to other men, more morally stable men. He had adolescents at his disposal and used them to satisfy his perverted desires, assuming that this eliminated the need for contact with men. It is interesting to note that during the recruitment of staff in those years, women who did not align with the party line were predominantly employed, and sometimes even women from noble families, who had daughters of certain ages, were specifically selected for such purposes. Now, let us turn to a very delicate and complex topic, which is difficult to answer definitively. Did Stalin himself know about this? And if he did, why did he take no measures to stop these outrages? Boris Ilazarov's book about Joseph Vissarionovich hints that he possibly knew what was happening, and even maintained certain links with Yenukidze. The author suggests that the party official could have been setting up the country's leader by providing him with girls and even very young girls, which was particularly dangerous and scandalous at the time. Furthermore, in his writings, Ilazarov expresses the assumption that these very connections ultimately led to the downfall of the great revolutionary. There are no surviving testimonies confirming Stalin's involvement in these crimes, nor did witnesses come forward at that time with explanations. Whether this is true or not, I do not presume to judge. Everyone has the right to their own opinion. What do you think about this complicated and very delicate subject? Try to share your opinion in the comments. It is also important to note that starting from the 1930s, specifically from 1935, when rumors about such practices began to spread actively, Yenukidze's career started to decline. Soon, he was arrested and charged with serious crimes: espionage, treason to the homeland, and connections with foreign states. Among these accusations was the claim that he allegedly organized a comprehensive campaign to discredit himself and link himself to secret conspiracies at the highest levels of power. The peculiarity of the situation is that among all Soviet leaders, Yenukidze was the only one officially accused of systematic seduction of underage girls. Moreover, additional compromising evidence was also uncovered during the investigation. Heinrich Jagoda, the chief of the NKVD at that time, managed to uncover another significant scandalous fact. He established that Yenukidze helped two of his lovers escape abroad. This act played a particularly important role in the final accusatory conclusion against him, which ultimately destroyed his reputation and led to the end of his political career. Thus, the story of this person was filled with scandalous and tragic moments that left a deep mark on the memory of those dark years. In particular, Svanidze, who had close and trusting relations with Stalin, often complained about Yenukidze, but did so exclusively in secret from his husband, as Alexander Svanidze maintained close ties with Don Juan, whom he regarded as a brother. Interestingly, it is also known that Bulgakov, creating his character Arkady Simplicius Rov in his famous work The Master and Margarita, drew inspiration precisely from the image of Yenukidze. According to some versions, this is based on the fact that Yenukidze, in the opinion of several sources, did not show sufficient initiative or decisiveness regarding the matter of obtaining permission for the writer to go abroad. He simply redirected the request to another official, and the document confirming the permit was lost within the vast bureaucratic system. As a result, it is believed that Bulgakov, feeling insulted, created in his work the image of an official, a frivolous husband, whom he exposed during theatrical performances at the Warsaw Theater in 1937. At that time, Yenukidze was executed, but in 1959, he was officially rehabilitated. Indeed, according to Svanidze, there was an aura of enjoyment surrounding this person and his behavior, indulging in matchmaking, family discord, and seducing young women, which led to many assumptions and rumors. However, the question arises, do these rumors and accusations truly reflect the truth? Or are they just unfounded slanders by hostile and jealous people? This is worth pondering and sharing your thoughts in the comments. Perhaps you have additional information or a different perspective on this individual, and I would be interested to hear it. That's all for today. I hope this video was interesting and useful for you, and that you will find the time to appreciate my work. through a subscription or a like. In turn, I will strive to please you with new episodes, raising a wide range of diverse and engaging topics.